When I was in the 4th grade, my mother sent me on an errand up to Main Street of the city. In the process, a child yelled "nigger" at me, and I walked over and smacked the child. Finished the errand and was sitting in the kitchen talking to my mother, and without turning to face me, she quietly asked me the question, "Jimmy, what good did that do?" It was a turning point in my life, but the last thing she said to me was, "Jimmy, there must be a better way." When I started reading Gandhi in 1947, I recognized very quickly that we black people could change a lot of Jim Crow law and racism and so forth through nonviolent tactics. As the Montgomery bus boycott occurred in 1955, I recognized that this is what I was hoping to see happen, and I knew that I would be involved in it. But then I was in graduate school at Oberlin College in Ohio, and King was coming there to speak. And so I made certain I was at the speech, and then afterwards went to a small luncheon. And as it turned out, I was the first person to arrive, and Martin King was the second person to arrive. As King recognized that I had been planning for 10 years to probably go south, he said to me very quietly, "Come now, don't wait, we need you now." I moved to Nashville, Tennessee, and I dropped out of grad school. By the fall of '58, I decided that I was going to experiment with changing Nashville through nonviolent action as the next step, to show that Montgomery was not an accident, but also to show another way of doing it.
Which sort of tries to set the stage for an actual demonstration, for an actual sit-in.
And while the history books mark 4 students from Greensboro as starting it, everyone who studies the case knows that the Nashville movement that had begun in '59 became the center and the heart of the movement, and what King called the model nonviolent campaign. Not only did it become the model, but because of serious teaching, preparation for it, I was able to produce many of the staff people who then continued teaching and creating campaigns in Albany, the Freedom Ride, the Mississippi Summer. King and I, with Ella Baker, were the organizers of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which I basically named. Well, I was a pastor in Memphis from 1962 on, but in 1968, 1,300 black workers who were the sanitation people walked off the job. So I went to their meetings and supported them. But as a part of that organizing, we wanted major figures to come in to speak. And so King was one of the figures the strategy committee asked to come in, and I did the phone calling for that.
Good evening. Dr. Martin Luther King, the apostle of nonviolence in the civil rights movement, has been shot to death in Memphis, Tennessee.
People have asked, well, you must feel guilty about that, and I have to say no. King and I were part of a very significant movement. We were colleagues in it. We both were of the same mind here that workers organized in unions could advance themselves. I have a certain amount of confidence that I know there is a better way, and the work of a Gandhi, but also a Martin King in Western civilization, shows us, if we're prepared, that there's a better way to have a different kind of world. So I sense that I have found the better way that my mother spoke of. Well, I've been an admirer of the Community Coalition from the time it was organized under the leadership of Karen Bass. And as I've watched the coalition and see where you are today, it gives me a sense of gratitude and thanksgiving that I'm receiving this accommodation from the Community Coalition, and I will value it as a part of my experience.